More out of the Million Man March. Now you're talking about something else. You're talking about turning DC into Charlottesville. Look, I'm not against it. I'm just saying that's a different conversation. You know what I'm saying? You can say black men get together and don't turn up. You know what I'm saying? I'm cool with that. I'll agree with that. But just get together for a conversation, they did that.
Don Cato, aka the Gray Wolf, 0.308s. Salute. Yeah, man, I gotta get my energy right because we're gonna bust him in the head with this one. I had to bring Big Bro up in here, man. Let's go.
You know what I'm saying? The Million Man March was just a glorified, big-ass, unnecessary town hall. You know what I'm saying? I stand by that. And I meant that. And maybe it went over some heads. I just wanted to clarify it. Like I said, you cannot put all these people together and say black men ain't never tried to come together and have a real conversation about what's happening to them.
Gotta get that music ready for him, man, because I'm gonna bust him in the head with this one. And I had to bring in my big bro. Let him rock.
No, but I need people that's listening to these debates to really listen. Because when we doing this, we doing it. Well,
that's right.
Whether it's me and Cynthia, me and Brother Moses and Cynthia. Listen, man, we doing this shit. And we coming bar for bar. You'll have no time to blink. You're gonna miss something if you do. So I suggest y'all get y'all listening skills and comprehension up, man, because we coming bar for bar. Every conversation, dog, it's body blow after body blow. Knockout punch after knockout punch. Some of this shit that we be debating on, we get to levels to where if we was debating somebody else, they'd already been done. Because we so deep in this shit. We so rooted in it, we know so much in terms of this. Other people would have been body bagged in these conversations 45 minutes ago. Wouldn't even had a shot. You know what I'm saying? So that's why I say, like, I love having these conversations with Sin. I love having these conversations with Black Women's Spirit.
We're gonna start them off right there as we bust them in the head with this one. All right, I hope y'all get ready, man. Here's what we got lined up for a show right now. We got a little bit of information that we're going to be passing. There's about a time limit that I can do of about 30. So if you rock with me for the 30 and you can make it all the way through this presentation, you'll find some very valuable insights. Black First Perspective, man, if you see the title and then you dig down into that description, you'll know that this has some very comprehensive information and analysis included. So rock with the kid, man. There's a lot going on and a lot that could fly right over our heads. But as Black media, we got work to do. They are on a frantic how they've been spinning the information about our Black brothers and sisters. We have 2A, folks. Groups, cliques, organizations, structures, and individual households, participants in that whole ideology. Yes, we do. As African Americans, we do have a sizable portion. I'm talking thousands and thousands of African Americans who do believe in that constitutional right to bear arms, just like for having one's opinion, right? Respect that. That is the ideology, and we're fighting to see how willing we're getting close to seeing how willing we are to go to actual blows to defend those constitutional rights. So I'm gonna give you this music, lessons over music. I call it music therapy because everything that I witnessed today was triggering. We are looking at an event where they are justifying the destruction of Black bodies to run inside the household and take the life of the head of household or the son, the daughter in this case, Breonna Taylor, our sister, and in justice for Breonna Taylor, they have taken that narrative towards how do we justify it? State sanctioned violence against our folks. And we're battling that ideology, and we're going to battle it as intellectual as they want to do it. Like what you see on the screen from Black Growth, what was happening in the media is there was an incident that occurred on today, July 25th, 2020, during the Justice for Breonna Taylor demonstration. At this demonstration, it was supported or collaborated with, there was the arrival, announced, planned, and smooth arrival of NFAC. In fact, their arrival was met in such large numbers, hundreds. They called for thousands, but they got hundreds. And in that, you have to understand there were some who were not as well trigger trained. But everything I saw today was triggering, so I understand. Did the live stream earlier to make sure that folks captured the entire message and speech delivered by the leader of NFAC. But I had to sit through as the chat kept running and the hate kept spilling and the conflicted arguments kept being run by people who claim to love that very Constitution and those constitutional rights. They claim to love the right of the press. They claim to love and will die to defend the right of the people to form a militia, to secure a free state. Freedom from what? I tell you, there are some conflicted folks out there, and what they did today was triggering. And because I was triggered, I got to get it out. I need music therapy. That's what I rely on. And in this music therapy, I'll give you the lesson. Rock with me. Who am I actually debating? First and foremost, the debate is always on Black media. They're not. And in running they're not, they run their stories from a far right or conservative opinion perspective. And so this is the conservativeopinion.com fact number one. They are out there. They are getting their numbers up. They still have followers, just like our pages have subscribers and followers. And when they come together and chat and talk in the open and public spaces from their perspective, these are the things that they like to say about us. First and foremost, who am I even arguing against? Breaking. So they called it breaking news. In fact, Black armed militia has Louisville march planned for today. Their representative is John Heltzel. It was published here July 20th. Let's see what they had to say. In fact, Black armed militia group is back in the news and planning a march in Louisville, Kentucky today. Friday, Louisville councilmen, for all of those people who say, oh, we need to take the local council and we need the Black sheriffs and that's what we need. We need the mayor on board and the governor on board. They started off pretty straightforward, talking to those people. If you feel like council members and having their approval or authority is important, then they were catering to you when they said Friday. Louisville Councilman Kevin Kramer, a Republican, urged residents to stay clear from the city's downtown area on Saturday while the militia's marches are underway. So what happened? The council member is the open medium of communication on what they can expect. What did they say in their communication of what they can expect? Well, this is their quote. The potential for violence will be heightened as we will more than likely have a number of highly armed groups representing very different viewpoints, as well as other groups, all situated within a block of each other. While efforts are being made to ensure a safe environment to all persons present, I would caution you that the potential for violence will exist. That comes from Louisville Councilman Kevin Kramer, a Republican, so one who represents the conservative opinion or the far right. That's source number one, and we got to give it to them in incremental small bites. Be sure you like the stream and drive this information forward because we're going to break them down and build them up. So point number A, let's look at the event and what was communicated about the event to the people of Louisville. They put them at a heightened sense of awareness. The Black armed militia is coming. 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 And see, I have no problem with them alarming their people to it, but you do have to understand that their media is under their way of thinking, I guess. They think in the spirit of fear. We think in the spirit of power. The message that needed to be sent, the place where it needed to be sent from, as designated by those who are leading that demonstration, that formation on that end. Yeah, they got their message across. They did what they needed to do. But that crafty of a devil white media that came and spun that message to be a message of fear is the precedent for them saying it's a terrorist group. See, they want to sow the seeds of division. Those same people that are using that terminology to describe our black brothers and sisters. And yet it is the responsibility of black media, as we exercise our constitutional right, to drive the counter narrative. And if we could ever become proactive, we would know that we need to spread the narrative And so I've given you a little bit of information about the event. What I want to do next is actually drive into what happened. So we aired that event. We showed what happened. We let the brother speak for himself. And then after that, the live stream ended. So I gave a little context and then I moved forward. But when that live stream ended, something else happened behind the scenes that is not likely to be reported. And if it is our responsibility to get out first and help control this narrative, then let's see our black folks do so. They scream that we need black representative faces to be in these places, but are those faces in these places good enough?
In the past 48 hours, Louisville has experienced an extreme amount of tension
to protect our narrative.
Yesterday, protesters blocked Market Street in the New Loop neighborhood with tables and large and bleach. We have seen these fluids used to attack officers throughout the country. Yesterday, there were protesters that threw water bottles at the police. As a result of these incidents, 76 protesters were arrested for assault, obstructing the highway, and disorderly conduct charges.
She just gonna run that like that? What? Watch the spin.
36 protesters.
Wow. What? So something happened throughout the country. Okay, let's see. Bleach.
We have seen these.
So there was piss, water, and bleach. Let's see what happens.
Cables.
The
barrels were used to filled with water, urine, and bleach.
Piss, water, and bleach.
We have seen these fluids used to attack officers throughout the country.
Fluids used to attack officers throughout the country.
There were protesters that threw water bottles at the police.
So they threw water bottles. She's acknowledging that there are some protesters who threw water bottles, and she premised it with a statement about job. That is our duty. All right, let's see. Maybe it was my internet connectivity or the suppression therein. It looks like we're back. So we'll see what our representation is doing, and do they have the power in their positions to protect our narrative?
As a result of these incidents, 76 protesters were arrested for assault, obstructing the highway, and disorderly conduct.
Wait, so you talk about fluids being used, and then you say 76 were arrested. No, fluids were used. There were bottles at police, and then it just expands to 76 arrests made.
Charges. Today, shortly before 1 p.m., shots rang out and 3 people were struck by gunfire as the result of a discharge of an individual's gun. That individual was participating in the NFAC demonstration at Baxter Park. The Louisville Metro Police Department, Louisville Division of Fire, and Louisville Metro EMS responded quickly and rendered aid to all 3 victims. Without their quick response, this could have been a much worse situation. Lieutenant Colonel Himes of the Louisville Division of Fire will provide details about their response to these incidents during protests.
And so everything that happened, everything is hijacked by one narrative. Feel me? Everything is hijacked by one narrative. And I guess you got to make it about something. So again, salute Black growth for the people that's saying that NFAC stupid for an accidentally shooting they own. Read this, American soldiers. Let's talk about all the friendly deaths y'all have caused. America's soldiers kill and injured their own all the time, according to NewYorkTimes.com. Soldier in the image rendering salute to the helmets and rifles of fallen soldiers. In their article, it was America's dark history of killing its own troops with cluster munitions. So from the sky, bombs dropped, and America killing their own men. I ain't just gonna leave you with that fire, man. There is so much more to be discussed. I thought Black growth did a good job of calling out one way to counter a narrative. It wasn't proactive, but it was reactive. And once you're already on the reactive, then you gotta say something. And our brother did get up there. The NFAC leader did get up there and say the same thing during his message. And so it is going to be a conversation about being triggered and how dangerous it is just to be triggered and to not have the discipline. I should have wrote it down, man. I had it better when it first came across my mind. I had it better. It didn't come out as strong as I had it, but we're gonna rock with it anyway. Trigger discipline. I think that's the word. Trigger discipline. It is too late to learn trigger discipline when you're already standing in formation. And it's definitely too late to learn trigger discipline once you're already confronted by your opposition. Definitely too late. When you're already confronted by your opposition, you would only hope that your trigger discipline is stronger and more acute and even more direct than theirs and the individual standing next to them. The event brought together our Black sisters and brothers who believe in the Second Amendment rights to bear arms, and so trigger discipline is very necessary. That is the right and the responsibility, the duty of every individual who is a part of that movement. Ideology. Let's tear this shit back a layer. Ideology is where you have the rights on paper, like the Constitution, You have the rights on paper, but in the real world, execution is always used against you. Point number 3. Those rights that can be only on paper and then used against you if you execute those rights, it happens because there is another agent in this order of law. In this order of law, there is another agent. In this order of law, there is another agent. Point number 4. In what she was saying, the officer of the law, that other agent in the order of law, and what that black officer, our sister still nonetheless, what she was saying, aside from the whole incident of 3 people being injured, she said that 97 from her own words were arrested. I would just like that to be documented as evidence of a very biased system. Again, the documentation of mass incarceration. Look, the motherfucker that threw the bottle, maybe not the person who did not throw the bottle, for sure. And so what we call this is guilt by association. This is an example of something being a right on paper, but if you execute, then you are guilty in the court of law. And that there is another agent whose powers are usurping your very own. And then I would just like to say, as I move into this next thought, this next stream of consciousness, is that that right that had been removed from those people, our black brothers and sisters who were detained, who were arrested, is that that was also a very high risk decision on both sides. The agents making the arrest, as well as the armed member who obviously surrendered. Yes, here in America, there is a decision to be made. Do you surrender your right, or do you preserve it? All right, so this wave of consciousness has to shift at some time. It has to go into the urgency of the now, and in this very now, I want to show you that that conflict is troubling, but that conflict is profitable, and that there are powers that be, if you want to call them, even above the agents and the protesters. I'm trying to use my words here correctly. There's powers even above the agents and the protesters. These agents who are executing state-sanctioned violence against the people. So I'm just going to show you real quick here as I make this pivot. This flow of consciousness for me has to include something fire, and it does. And so I want to show you a couple of things here. Number one is that when it came down to GoFundMe as a source up type of conversation, GoFundMe made this big declaration and raising millions of dollars for certain individuals, like the George Floyd Memorial GoFundMe has raised $13.7 million. Official Gianni Floyd Fund is also another one there. I didn't know this, but George Floyd's GoFundMe surpassed $13 million last month. It became the highest or the most grossing GoFundMe type of donation thing. I just wanted to share that as we stay source up. That is another one. And that source is relevant because we are locked into a battle against state-sanctioned violence against our people. And as we're locked again in that battle, we do have this left and we do have this conservative opinion that is supposed to be for the Constitution. They are supposed to be for our right to say it, as well as our right to protest and peacefully assemble. And they're supposed to be for, as you move from the First to the Second Amendment, they're supposed to be for American citizens forming a well-regulated militia, for a free state, or the right to not be killed by state-sanctioned violence, a free state or free from that violence. They're supposed to be for it on the right, or as conservatives, or as people who believe in this Constitution, but yet they were the ones who, even to this day, got out there and said, we are going to back the police. The same police department that is the one that ran into that woman's house and killed her. And so we have to continue to push back. These record-breaking GoFundMe accounts were matched with Black Lives Matter account and activation and funding as well. I didn't know this happened, where GoFundMe froze, what is that, $3.5 million or $350,000 in contributions that the Black Lives Matter Foundation attracted 4 million in donations to its mission for the unity with the police department. Black Lives Matter and other groups flooded with millions as they watch the destruction of Black bodies, and this shit becomes their profit. Our loss, their profit. So much so that people don't. What? That's how you hijack a narrative. But it's about mass incarceration, so that was just a segue on my stream of consciousness. But as we do, we have to source up. And so I'm giving you the sources as we segue into my consciousness, because this is about the mass incarceration of those demonstrators who are protesting against state-sanctioned violence. And what happens to those protesters? Well, like that Black officer just told you, 97 of them were arrested. We gotta walk them to this information, and once we get there, you'll say thank you. But I'm gonna walk us to this information because one of my favorite peoples did have something to say. African-American activist who just so happens to be a prosecutor there in Baltimore. One of my favorite folks, former prosecutor Marilyn J. Mosby, the state attorney for Baltimore City, and their big struggle there. She formed this big coalition between prosecutors, and it was across state lines and everything, and she was doing a number of good things that I say. But in this one, she had her op-ed opinion on July 23rd, so 2 days ago, asking the White House to stay the fuck out of our business, because this is the image of state-sanctioned violence, but on the street it looks a little bit different when you're the one they're pointing those barrels towards. To have the African Americans, or the rabbit as they say, bring out their guns. And so I sourced up as we pivot into the mass incarceration and what are we actually doing to fight it. And pro-blacks must show receipts fashion. I want to give you the information laid out and published by our sister Marilyn Mosby who is doing just that, fighting against the state-sanctioned violence enacted upon our people. Can I do that as we segue into my second stream of consciousness here? As you see on the thumbnail, are federal agents kidnapping protesters? That's the question. Man, let me get back to the chat first before I segue. Man, if you know this information is good and that Brother Moses is on fire right now, I should at least have a couple more thumbs up than the ones that I see. Be sure that you share this information with somebody you know might like it. Share it with a friend. Say sharing for a friend. I like to use now viewing when I am sharing fire content, and I know this shit is fire. I don't need no applause. Amen. Or what did they say? Lights and walls. But we have an obligation to tell our story, and that's what I am here to do. So the story from Marilyn Mosby, the state attorney in the city of Baltimore City, she says it this way: desperate times produce desperate measures. Sought a distraction by sending federal law enforcement officers into Portland, Oregon. Scarier to us than even the Orwellian sight of federal agents in military fatigues assaulting citizens and bundling them into unmarked vehicles is that Trump has spoken of sending federal agents to Baltimore and Philadelphia. We were elected to prosecute violations of the law in these cities. We strongly believe that the actions in Oregon are illegal. Should the president proceed with his plan in our cities, his agents will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. They don't think niggas is fighting back, but I'm here to tell you there is a difference when they start sending in agents, and those agents, the same police force that has always gotten away with the destruction of black bodies. And even your protests, they can kidnap the black bodies right off of the protest and say, well, they are guilty by association. They are standing next to or walking alongside somebody who's fucking mad. And that's their justification for the destruction of black bodies. And that's why they can run into our homes and kill the Breonna Taylors of the world. Oh, but when you find yourself engaged in this debate, remember to call out that distraction. Remember to give them the fact that the federal agents are in military fatigues assaulting citizens and bundling them into unmarked vehicles, according to the state attorney, the district attorney. And the officer of the law, even today, once the cameras were turned off, said 97 more were thrown into custody by that same force. And how do you fight back? Well, there are pro-blacks, and I do not want the message to ever resound that we were not trying to fight back against the violation and the human rights violation, and definitely all of its illegitimate bastard kids enacting it against us. The violation and its illegitimate bastard kids, likely born less than 5 generations on a whole different continent. Shit has nothing to do with them, but they affix themselves to the notion or the ideology of the far right and think they can talk to us about the Constitution and what the Constitution means to us. Not only can you deny or join those forces that think they can deny our right to that very Constitution, but they are claiming the authority to use force in the denial of our right to that very Constitution, and they ain't even from this motherfucker. But you put them in a blue shirt or you put them against a black shirt and it seems to make sense, but it doesn't. And so earlier I was trying to talk about it, but the only word that could come to my mind in describing it was a dictatorship. And as you see here, as published at the Washington Post, be sure to subscribe, get your subscription, because every once in a while they do let a good nigga get their words off. And in this one, they let my nigga, my sister, get it off. She says, peaceful protesters were assaulted, detained, and taken in unmarked vehicles to an undisclosed location, and niggas don't want to talk about that. But yet we're talking mass incarceration or criminal justice reform, justice for the Breonna Taylors, and they don't see the correlation. And so we got to show them through our streams of consciousness. It was like being preyed upon. Portland protesters say federal officers in unmarked vans are detaining them. Look at this motherfucker here. Look at it. Oh, silly, goofy looking ass nigga. But we know what's going on out there. Federal customs officials said Friday that their agents had detained a demonstrator in Portland, Oregon, in a widely seen video circulating online that showed two men in apparent military garb taking a young man wearing all black into custody. So it doesn't matter, blue shirt, black shirt, you could be the white shirt, you could be the yellow turban rebellion in the Ming Dynasty. When the state starts sanctioning violence against your people, it is the responsibility of those people who are being provoked to stand up for themselves. Fuck you mean? Fuck you mean? And fuck you if you disagree. Them niggas ain't even from here. And so with that stream of consciousness coming to its end, you could move to voter suppression. You could move to any of its illegitimate bastard kids. There are so many places that you could go with that conversation. But I'm B1 Brother Moses. And in asking the question, are federal agents kidnapping protesters? That one white boy's experience has nothing on the mass incarceration argument that we're making when we tell you they took 97 bodies right off of a protest, a peaceful assembly, snatch them up and said somebody threw a bottle at the police officer. Blue shirt, black shirt, both of them are still trying to uphold the same constitution, but you got one that has the ability to kidnap black bodies. They're protesting or peacefully assembled because they didn't just kidnap a black body, they ran into my sister's house and killed her. And 4 months later, they're still not willing to charge the blue shirt with the murder of Breonna Taylor. Now that's why I don't debate them people, because they'll say I have too much passion. Why is he yelling? Bitch! And they can puppet and parade a black officer up there because there are people who think we just need black people in these positions to be the black mayor, to be the black mayor, to local, vote local, vote local, vote local, vote local. Grandmaster, he sounds like a DJ, somebody with a music career. But if you just give them a black face, make it pretty, soften it up, pluck her eyebrows, Wow, I think they played me, but I'm still here and we're going to keep rocking. I think they played me, but I'm still here and we're going to keep rocking. When I looked back at the screen, it said I had been disconnected. But I'm back, baby. And let's pick up where we left off at. Drop a 1 in the chat if you still rocking with me. I will continue. Drop a 1 in the chat if you still rocking with me, and I will continue. Drop that 1 in the chat if you're still rocking with it, and I will continue. But there's still more information to deliver.
Distance. It's made it clear that the best memories don't.
Yeah, they played your boy. You see how they doing this? It's all good.
Happen miles apart.
Man, let me get a 1 in the chat if you're still rocking with us, man, and we'll continue. Let me get a 1 in the chat if you're still rocking with us, and we will continue. If it's not necessary to bring the information, then let me know. But I'm gonna keep that information coming. Give me that 1 in the chat. Appreciate you. All right, man. So hopefully you all were able to hear it out of the man's mouth himself. He said he's there to exercise his constitutional rights, and so then we have to break that ideology down. This is finally getting to the real rebuttal. And so it's not just the GoFundMe that's been moving this ball forward, but also the Equal Justice Initiative. Look them up. And in the Equal Justice Initiative, a part of theirs is to use media and information to empower. And the information that they are bringing to the table, their most recent document, is the one that says the numbers of lynchings of Black bodies, or the destruction of Black bodies, is more than recently recorded. They said the actual number of lynchings of African Americans is more than actually recorded. So the Equal Justice Initiative released a new report documenting 2,000 more lynchings of Black people by white mobs. It's found in their story, The Reconstruction in America, that documents nearly 2,000 more confirmed racial terror lynchings of Black people by white mobs in America than previously detained. Brother Moses, why is that important? The ultimate fear of the narrative they were using, I showed you the governor, right? And the narrative they were using is one that said Black folks, armed militias, are going to be a mob. But the evidence in American history and culture is that white armed members are the ones who turn into violent mobs. Nigga, that ain't us. The fighting back may have happened, but the white mob mentality, they own that shit. And that's recently documented to be higher than ever projected. So the far right, or the conservative opinion that lynchings was around 3,000 was debunked. And the Equal Justice Initiative went and found that information and tried to enlighten these folks. But the information is not empowering the right. That information, you know, of the radical racial terror lynchings of Black people and the lack of justice even there. And so the usage of the word lynchings, and all the way through today, we still can't get anti-lynching legislation passed, dealing with these political folks. All of that is linked to today's conversation. to the mass incarceration and GoFundMe making a space for monies to be collected to help victims of mass incarceration, and then Black Lives Matter and them getting funding as they hijack the narrative on the destruction of Black bodies and take it and appoint their political arms and lobbyists and so forth. All of this is connected to this idea. They ran this narrative to elicit fear in society of armed Black people coming to our town. Stay away, stay away, stay away. But history itself records that the white mob lynchings were never prosecuted. While even today, I showed you proof from the damn police officers' mouth themselves, using the evidentiary claim they made. Well, there was water over there, and across the nation, they've been using water or some forms of liquid to assault police. And so we started making arrests, walked that case all the way through to where it was only a few people actually arrested for throwing a fucking bottle, and everybody else just for their demonstration. Their constitutional right and their freedom, their right to assemble, their free state, them exercising their constitutional rights. We debunk that and we keep it moving. And now we take it the step further to what they said in the first place that created said fear or justification for the federal agents to be sent in the second place. The fear is that these Black folks are coming and they're going to burn us down. They're going to kill us all. They're going to run through our houses and terrorize us, which is just a narrative used to make us out to be the terrorists. That's just not accurate. And it's our job to fight back. And so that's what we got to do. This report then becomes the secondary or the primary evidence in my claim that you got the wrong nigga. A primary evidence would be something like this, which costs money. The New York Times actual article, when it published, and then we could take it even further, it has been digitized for our convenience, but they're in Louisville. So we make sure when you debate Brother Moses, you bring facts. Louisville, where a white mob hanged Robert Morton, a Negro, 3 miles from Rockfield sometime after last midnight. Oops. See, I didn't just make a claim that the white people were the ones that would bring racial violence, but I walked you through to the actual Louisville where they were today to make the point relevant. Somebody doesn't know the history. And so we got to break them down. But when we break them down, we want to make sure we bust them upside the head with this one. They still to this day won't pass that anti-lynching legislation, and we still have to try to fight in every measure that we can. And so one of the ways that we are attempting to fight back is evidenced in the Equal Justice Initiative's publication, Reconstruction in America, Racial Violence After the Civil War, 1865 to 1876. Scroll through just to present the information, but give you the source so that you can check it out. I will not summarize all of this. I will not go through each of these sectors, but I will give you the source. In a conscious stream, it is necessary for us to drop the source. Don't just listen to B1 Brother Moses. If this is the most recent published attempt to fight back against the mass incarceration or the destruction of the Black bodies, I present it as evidence as Black media to counter the narrative that there was a Black mob coming to be violent, and also show you at the same time that even the white mobs were never arrested up to the extent of the arrests made today of Black people. And yes, I holler when I get to the point that needs to be made. The kidnapping of black protesters going on even here today is historically precedented not to happen, going against the government-sanctioned violence, mobs forming, and those mobs were never arrested even when they killed people. Oh, as long as they were killing black people, it was okay. But even when the white mobs, and don't just listen to Brother Moses, Equal Justice Initiative has this information, and we'll just run through some of their taglines so you understand it's not just me ranting and raving. Historians have frequently overlooked this critical 12-year period that has had profound impact on life in the United States. Our collective ignorance of what happened immediately after the Civil War has contributed to misinformed stereotypes and misguided false narratives about who is honorable and who is not, and has allowed bigotry and a legacy of racial injustice to persist. This Equal Justice Initiative was correcting what they published in 2015 when they told them even then. It details over 4,400 documented racial terror lynchings of black people in America between 1877 and 1950, and they added 2,000 more. Where is there evidence of black mobs coming to kill white people? Where? They got the wrong nigga. In this journey to freedom, as they started off with, they go all the way back, like I go all the way back to emancipation and this idea of citizenship and what that means in our nation. The citizenship then being a right to the Constitution, an ownership, a stake. They take them back to the enslavement of and the English colonies and so forth. The inequality after enslavement. They show the maps. They provide the context. They even show images of the old daguerreotypes, the first pictures and the cartoon images that were created to tell the story of the black women hung. And why it's necessary for the Marilyn Mosbys of today to continue to fight, even from within that system, to prevent the destruction of black bodies. Yeah, they break it down. They show you that the preservation of the black family matters, but that it was written on paper, but the execution of being in a black family was punishable by law. 5 generations, they say. 5 generations of enslaved family in South Carolina. Them niggas ain't even from here, and they think they can join our debate on constitutionality and citizenship. They think they can have a conversation or an opinion on reparations with us. These new niggas. 1862 documentation from the Library of Congress, 5 generations of enslaved. And they think they can have the conversation with the descendants of us. Big U dot big S dot the descendants of us. In this battle for social and civil and civil rights, Black Americans continue to press up against that opposition that uses double talk as a tool, that far-right conservative opinion that can't stand on any position consistently. And so we battle it out using the information that's available to us from the Lincoln pages. When it gets to citizenship, they're jumping into the 13th Amendment's adoption that says it meant the Constitution banned racialized chattel slavery. It did not mean that white Southerners recognized Black people as fully human, or that Southern officials would enforce their new legal protections absent federal oversight. So what happened? The federal government then being called to be an agent of positive change to enforce the rights of all. This Black Lives Matter movement takes this premise and builds upon it and says, well, Black lives are not being proven to matter. Not in the court of law, or not even on the streets. And so the request is made, will the federal government send in agents to protect and enforce the preservation of rights of those Black people? Or will they be sending in agents, arming them to kidnap Black bodies as we protest the provocation and the mistreatment of Black men and women? The information shared here by the Equal Justice Initiative goes into a very vital section, which is the military reconstruction that we can only hope people already understand. And the radicalization of a military force that has now been disbanded from killing each other and now aiming its muskets and rifles in an organized fashion at the Black household. And so they frame it with the military reconstruction by telling you this: terror campaigns enabled white people opposed to racial equality, those who were opposed to racial equality, to gain control of most Southern state legislatures. They still got it. And by 1876, pro-Reconstruction officials controlled state governments in only 3 of the former Confederate states. As a minority, they continued to lose, and thus the Black codes and this entire section of radical protest. You take it further and say the 13th Amendment and the 14th, these are citizens, man, you got to protect them. These are citizens. So what happened? In response, and again, over President Johnson's veto, that Congress, that I hate Black people and there will never be equality Congress and legislature, they passed the Reconstruction Acts of 1867, imposing what kind of rule? Military rule on the South, and requiring states seeking readmission to the Union to ratify the 14th Amendment. They got to recognize this shit. Today, they still don't. And thus we keep having these debates with the far right and the conservative opinion. They didn't then, they don't now. Freedom to fear, a terrifying and deadly backlash. Historian Henry Louis Gates says, so determined were most white Southerners to maintain their own way of life that they resorted to fraud, intimidation, and murder in order to reestablish their own control of those state governments. Of these state governments. The new Civil War within the Southern states stemmed from an adamant determination to restore white supremacy. So why do we have Black people that are arguing on that side on even today? I just can't tell you why. I don't know. I think there's just misinformation out there that is so powerful that, and if that's what they are consuming is that misinformation time and time again, then they are only responding to the information that they've consumed. And thus we have work to do. And so what happened? Reconstruction, they took over the political, they took over the legislation, they took over the Congress, tried to get the federal forces to intervene. We know today the federal forces are now being told to go against us specifically, but there was an attempt to get the federal forces to intervene, and it got military involvement. So what are you saying? Second Amendment rights then? Those people who are arguing for the protection and the security of a free state did not want the military used against them. That's how you make it no longer black or no longer blue. Those who did not want the military used against them started advocating against it. And in that history was the formation of white angry mobs. Shortly after passage of the 13th Amendment, white mobs began to target black people simply for claiming their freedom. I wanted to make sure that it was on the screen so you're not thinking this is just Brother Moses saying it. I gave you the source. And now we're giving you that information. It says, when local black men staged a march to support the convention, the seething opposition erupted in violence as white police and mob members indiscriminately killed black people in the area. I'm just giving you that information. It's yours now that you know it. Do with it as you please. I asked only earlier that you share it for somebody that you know needs this type of information. It may be somebody that you're debating who just doesn't understand. They don't understand the correlation to lynchings. They don't understand why we keep bringing up the Klan. They don't understand, well, why do they keep saying white supremacy? They don't understand the politics. They don't understand any of this. I just don't get it. I don't get why you keep saying that. We weren't alive when that happened. Show me one black person that's oppressed today. And so we show them many, and we give them the example of the 96 others who did not throw a bottle, but who were kidnapped as protesters using and utilizing their constitutional rights. But they disregard the 96 as guilty by association because the only information they have is from the same radical right that was upholding white supremacy in America in the first place. Fuck you mean? Well, it just doesn't exist, Brother Moses. It just doesn't exist. It never happened. The mob took me into the woods and whipped me for 3 hours or more and left me for dead. Is the testament and so they go on and continue to show the evidence and the proof and the documents of mass lynchings. Since this is the ideal or the principal thought that they were looking to avoid here, they said there was going to be mass executions. And then they, as you see here, 24 black people killed. Duplin County, North Carolina, summer of 1865, where 6 black people were lynched. Memphis, Tennessee, 1865, 20 black people lynched. 138 black people lynched. And I draw the correlation and tell you that even today, when 96 black folks were snatched off the streets of a lawful assembly, that again is the destruction of black bodies. But I just don't get it. Why do they keep talking about lynchings? They were there protesting the lynching of our sister. Fuck you mean? That was the lynching. They showed up. Once they showed up, look, this is the white mob. This is the violence that they were talking about. No, nigga, their mob show up to want to do that violence. That ain't us. Nigga, that ain't us. Nigga, we wasn't even cut like that, nigga. Show me where we was cut like that and we can argue it all day, every day. I would love to see somebody come on and bring on the facts where the black folks just ran out and started lynching the fuck out of these people. Show me the numbers, because this is my evidential claim that I'm using right here and I'm showing it. These acts were not committed only by marginalized extremists. Countless white people participated in attacking and killing black people to defend white supremacy. I'm not historian Eric Foner. So if you want to debate the point, you have to debate then Eric Foner, because he's giving you that information. Moses is giving it to you from the lens of the Equal Justice Initiative being the most recent and up-to-date primary source of information to use. They said, well, we were afraid that black people were going to start killing people in the streets. My rebuttal to it is that, nigga, that's not black, that's white mobs that do that shit. And here's my evidence. According to the Equal Justice Initiatives, who recently published in 2015, the lynching record, they republished it here in June and said there were 2,000 more that they found in their research. And they provided their research for 2,000 more. And here is that research on your screen. Should I slow it down any further than this? Oh, well, during Reconstruction, we just needed more black mayors and we just need to vote locally. And I use Reconstruction to break down and debunk that talking point too, because that far-right conservative talking point misses the fact that these are the black men who stepped up to do just that. And then I use the information shared via media about Marilyn Mosby, the state attorney general, who steps up and says just that. That's primary evidence, pro-black, receipts documented here for you to analyze and critique as you will. It's yours now. Black office holders served in South Carolina and Louisiana, where black people had the longest history of political organization. The longest history of political organization. The longest history of political organization all the way back to the 1800s. Stop telling me we need to organize locally. We just need to vote local. You obviously don't know how long we've been locked into this battle of ideology. You're missing the real information. It shows me that you must be somebody who's not versed in our struggle. Or that you're somebody who's only been educated from the far right education machine. And your streams of consciousness have been disrupted. But my stream of consciousness has not been disrupted, and I am still on fire. Somebody drop a fire sign if you still rocking with me in the chat. Just drop a fire sign if you still rocking with me, because I haven't equivocated from this topic one time. Some black leaders had gained their freedom before the Civil War, while others had worked as skilled artisans during enslavement or served in what? The Union Army. What was his rebuttal? Well, if you guys want to be a paramilitary, why don't you just join the real army? And I get that out of here real quick. Joining the army is not the escapist route that you think it will be when it comes towards attaining your liberation. But that individual decision is a good one. I respect you and applaud if you were able to be a black veteran, if you are now a black veteran or have family members that have ever served and did not become a broken buck, but that your stream of consciousness remains intact and uninterrupted. I said I need a fire sign in the chat if you still rocking with me. They like to make it about religion. Well, a large number of black political leaders came from the church. So miss me with that kumbaya, pray for them shit. We've tried it, bro. Show me your intelligence. More than 600 were elected to state legislatures. I'm just giving you the facts as they have been presented. And I showed you who the source was for it. People keep, well, you need to vote locally. You need to vote locally. You need to vote locally, as if that protected the black bodies from lynching. And so now again, we move into a space of fighting for education because somebody doesn't know shit. The myth of racial indifference and all of that, or, well, it's actually black folks who think they're inferior when they talk about white supremacy. No, that's not the case. That is absolutely not the case. There is a system, a organized structure, a framework for delegating and delineating power and authority. And that goes to the very extent of who and who cannot take a life or defend the taking of lives. And so you telling me now that black people don't even have the authority to defend ourselves from having our lives taken? Rest in peace, Breonna Taylor. If you know that whole story, then put the fire sign in the chat. Man, I'm sitting here and I'm earning this motherfucker today. I think I earned my fire sign. That's all I asked for. I didn't ask for no money, no charity, no nothing. I'm just giving you the information. They went to the Tuskegee Institute, Library of Congress image here. This is the Reconstruction report, Equal Justice Initiative. I got you there. Where's my fire sign, man? I feel you. I feel what's going on right here. And I can understand. You like, Brother Moses, you've been giving us that fire. You ain't gave us no commercial break. The music's been popping, but it's time to change up that energy, man. I need my fire sign. Where that fire at? I know it's fire. I know it's fire. And so I'm going to give you this third one here from 4 Classics. We're going to go back to the one that gives them the heat. This is the Murcielago joint. I appreciate this one too. Education is a pathway to the middle class. And thus we had the formation of black institutions during this time period. And even getting a college degree was not the escapism that we needed to ensure the protection of our rights. There's some real smart niggas, extra smart niggas with extra smartness that are still not free from persecution. And so here it says a black person riding on a loaded wagon or sitting on a hack waiting for a train or by the cabin door is often seen, book in hand, delving after rudiments of knowledge. A group on the platform of a depot, after carefully conning an old spelling book, resolves itself into a class. That was from a Freedmen's Bureau official as they started teaching black men just sitting there waiting on trains. They would hold class wherever they could hold class. I am here on YouTube continuing in that legacy. It says the first years, they went to places including Howard University in Washington, D.C. and Fisk University in Tennessee. And so they're moving throughout the South where that black political body is trying to work, but the white one has taken all the actual seats and they are pushing against equality. And so they're trying to get this education and information out, even while black people are being targeted for violence. It says black education was a target of violence as white communities clung to ideas of black inferiority and sought to trap black people in a freedom limited to subservience. So what happened? Those black military folks and those white military folks, whether they were Union or Confederate, that were still locked in these battles in the 70s, they had different corners where they were teaching their message. And the white mobs were the ones that went towards violence against those black teachers and others gathered for that information. Resisting economic exploitation is similar similar to the same line when we say you have to have an economic wing as well. It's the reason why I say you got to shut down those freeways if you really want to enact some change. Let me get me off the screen so you can see the information in its fullest. The slave expected to get 40 acres of land and a mule, but nobody got it as far as I know. We never got nothing, says Ellis Ken Cannon, a black man enslaved in Tennessee as a youth. Economic argument reconfirmed again, left to navigate the free market from a position of generations-long disadvantage in a system dominated by white people determined to maintain racial inequality. Black people found that freedom often meant poverty and desperation. Because most formerly enslaved people lacked the cash to buy land outright, and white landowners routinely refused to provide them credit, the government's refusal to provide targeted assistance meant that most freedmen could not build their own farms. And so they moved towards economic exploitation. Then it was backed by the president's inability to afford 40 acres and a mule. The compromise then being this sharecropping system where at least they have the right to contract with a white person, although a white person does not have a duty to uphold that contract. In this image here, a white, what was it? Excuse me, let it rock. They're showing you once again, it was the Reconstruction report by the Equal Justice Initiative. On that information of this image, they share a white manager weighs cotton picked by African-American sharecroppers circa 1870. And this is the relationship that they're asking us to maintain, is one that seems to be subservient, where as long as there is at least a white master here to weigh it, you should be content with the fact that you have a job. And in that relationship dynamic, Black people started to get educated, started to come together and say, no, we need to work to get ourselves free from this subservient position. What happened then was those white folks who did receive their land from the Union side, but still wanted to enforce racial inequality, those soldiers, as you would have them, then targeted the teachers and those there to learn about freedom and education in the form of economics and politics. All right, sis. So again, those teachers, those educators, those folks listening and learning then became the protesters. And the counter protesters are those white mobs who came and enacted violence against them in order to conserve the status quo. So Black people who want to have a conservative opinion, the thing that they are looking to conserve, or the great America that they are looking to conserve, is the one that upholds Black subservience. It's not just my argument, and here is the information. Salute, GBS. And so we tried to hit them with the education, and they started targeting the teachers. But they also targeted politics, which is why everybody knows about it, what it was called, creating discriminatory Black codes. So you had militiamen or Confederates, which is militiamen. And then you had those who wanted to be like militiamen, deputizing themselves, but they weren't really affiliated. We'll just call them the group that was against equality, all fighting against the protesters of the status quo. So all of those folks we bucket as anti-protesters. And they came in the form of militiamen even then, just like they wanted to show up today. Or they said they were going to show up on the 4th of July. Again, they keep making it seem like black folks don't have jobs, but even then, black people as vagrants and loiterers, states passed laws authorizing public officials to lease prisoners. So that's the convict leasing argument that we reintroduced today in our fight against mass incarceration. And we also talk about it from the lens of it being a private industry. Today, that same prison industry on the board of the leading member of the leading, private prison company is Thurgood Marshall Jr. I'm gonna say it, drop it, because I've already said it again. Thurgood Marshall Jr. is on the board of the leading private prison company. And so these battles continue. And he says, while states profited, prisoners earned no pay and faced inhumane, hazardous, and often deadly working conditions, like having to be locked up during a coronavirus in a space where it's been noted has the highest rate of transmission outside of the nursing homes or the hospitals themselves. Oh, okay, yeah. The prisons, that one, okay. Salute that dude right there. You see him look like he's fixing his hat, but I call that the B1 salute. They go on to provide the information that we hope people already know about, which is the efforts of the Freedmen's Bureau. Hopefully it's all right if I just show you that information and just keep the screen moving, because then they bring it to the actual evidence, the documentation of the Reconstruction violence, where they start going city for city, where those white mobs are actually the ones who historically killed black people during these type of protests. When I'm only talking to black folks, of course, that I don't have to go this deep. But when you're on a public space, you do have to go this deep, because they'll think I was making some horrific claims. I was supporting terrorist activity or I'm black identity extreme. And those are the things and the labels that they would want to put on me as the media, telling you what happened and where the opposite end of media is getting it wrong. So it goes from local. We need black people to be local. This is the rights argument. Local politicians, we need you to be in charge of your sheriff and your policing. We need black policing, black communities that are autonomous and all of that. That's what they say. And then they say, well, you got to fight it using the tools that are there, which is politics and economics. And so we say shut down the freeways or burn it down or whatever analogy we want to use. And they take that and contextually place it in a different space for us. And so as black media, I come to correct that. Let me give you another one. From the Equal Justice Initiative Reconstruction report. This one, this headline, this tagline, this one that they wanted to pull out. It shows where we tried to use another level to achieve, another lever, L-E-V-E-R, another lever. They tried to pull another lever in order to enact the protection of black bodies. And that lever that they pulled was the judicial system. So if the police won't do it, the police are turning around and joining the white mobs that are killing black people and killing black teachers and killing black protesters. So the police are killing them. You ask for the federal government to come in, and the federal government tries to send in these agents, but they can't be anywhere near it. And now even today, when the federal government sends in agents, they send in the wrong nigga. They don't send in the agents that are there to preserve the rights of the protesters. Their agents are there under the same auspices of the police and the counter protesters. The agents, or the federal, the nasty girls, the nasty National Guard, excuse me, they're sent in backing the very thing the protesters were there to fight against. Keep it in context. State sanctioned violence, where the police officers went into the wrong damn house and killed a woman. And then even here, after 4 months, will not make the arrest of murder when they're the ones who got it wrong. And they were executing a tool or pulling a lever under their disposal, which is a no-knock warrant, on the wrong door and killed the wrong nigga, and still won't say, damn, that was murder, and are fighting tooth and nail to protect their right to kill Black people. And so we are protesting that, and there are opposition groups against us saying this is our constitutional rights at risk. This is a violation of human rights. And instead of saying, yes, that was a violation of Breonna Taylor's human rights, they exacerbate it and kidnap hundreds of more protesters protesting the violation of human rights. And then, even as they are committing greater atrocities against Black folks, you have Black folks justifying this behavior. I don't know what happened in my chat right there, but it looks like somebody came in with that heckle shit. They said you simply cannot grandstand with a semi-organized militia force. You have to put pressure on the Louisville government officials to prosecute the individuals that murdered Breonna Taylor. And so here we are, 4 months of pressure, and they still have not made their decision. The people on the ground said, look, I don't want to give you 4 weeks, but we'll give you 4 weeks to come to your resolution. And after 4 weeks, I don't give a fuck if you have the Federal Reserve behind you and the United Nations impromptu military force with boots on the ground. The bitch is burning. That's what a nigga said on the ground. That's what they said on the ground. They said, burn that motherfucker down. If after 4 more weeks, even though it's been 4 months, they said, look, if after 4 more weeks, y'all still haven't decided to prosecute those motherfuckers for murder, the problem is no longer ours. It's yours. And so we share the information of that violent mob because they wouldn't have gave them motherfuckers 4 weeks. They was already knocking 100 Black people up. Bam, bam, bam. There was already execution on sight. That is the legacy and the history of the white mob they tried to paint us out to be. Yet after all of this information, you would think they get it. No, they don't get it yet. And so I bust them in the head with this one. Gentile Killer says you have to put pressure on the Louisville government. And so you see here, through review of those 1865 to 68 records, congressional testimony. I'm just trying to tell you we've done that. It is not on us. They committed the atrocity. They committed the provocation. It is on them, come what may. They can put it on a map. And I actually used this map to find the incident there in Louisville, Kentucky. You see that red dot? Those red dots indicate that it was about 10 African Americans who were lynched but you see some bigger dots in other places where their numbers got up to even 200. And if this is what they fear, then yes, they should act accordingly. And to make sure we are giving the key sources, you see here the sharing of those sources where those events actually took place, where white mobs are the ones that ran through cities, towns, run into your jail cells, run into your capitals, run into your political meeting like you see here in Alabama. Let's go to some of this information to make sure they don't think this is just Brother Moses preaching. See, a white mob hangs 5 black men, including 2 preachers, on the public square outside of the courthouse without trial. That was there in Texas. White mob attacks his home and lynches his wife and 5 children in North Carolina. You see, oftentimes what happened, they could send down those federal agents to try to serve and protect, but they couldn't serve nor protect shit. When that mob came through, they got the fuck out the way, and all they could do is document what happened. And there was no prosecution of these white mobs on any of these events or the thousands of black bodies that were destroyed at the hands of these white mobs. And that's what actually happened, not the projected fear that the white media uses against white people or to stimulate white people to want to take action. No, they use their media to arouse white mobs because they know that there are white people who are deranged, delusional, and out of their fucking minds. And so we ask again, where the fuck was they today when NFAC showed up? Where's them bitch ass niggas at? If this is the myth they're running off of, it's obviously because they believe that it is only the white mob that has the authority to run through a city or a town killing motherfuckers. And so you remember those sharecropping agreements? Well, right there in North Carolina, 1865, 6 black men lynched after demanding that a white landowner pay them for their work. So you have the rights on paper, but if you execute them, you are the one who has the laws used against you. Right. Who was it? Again, approximately 20 black Union soldiers attacked and killed. This wasn't just black protesters that were out there, looking to wield violence. On the contrary, the anti-protesters showed up to where the 20 black Union soldiers were gathered. They didn't just show up to scream. They didn't need a bullhorn. It wasn't just a tiki torch. It wasn't just them standing around with a picket sign yelling, "No justice, no peace." They came and actually attacked and killed. Not just the people there, not just passerbys, not just somebody. Did he rape somebody? Did he write a white woman? Did he whistle at the bitch? No. They killed and attacked the black Union soldiers. Fuck you mean? Who you talking to? Black people just joined the army. Oh, well, you keep speaking as if we are all one. White mobs attacked the black community, killing at least 46 people and destroying homes, schools, churches, and businesses. So if you don't think that there should have been justice for Memphis, Tennessee in 1866, don't start talking to me about the threat made by those black people. The threat made by those black people. They said they're going to burn it down, when the actual legacy of burning down homes, schools, and churches and businesses and the human beings, the souls inside of those places, it belongs to these white people, as so documented by the Equal Justice Initiative. And they haven't found justice for those killed then, just like they do not have an appetite or a willingness to find justice for the killers of Breonna Taylor. And so we have to keep this fight going ourselves. I just don't get why they correlate the Klan and the lynching and white supremacy, and it just doesn't matter. It doesn't happen here today. You are wrong. And evidence that we show continues to prove it does. This isn't my information. I'm giving you the information from the source so you can argue against the source instead of throwing the ad hominem attacks about me being passionate and articulate. That's the distraction. Figure 2, racial terror massacres during Reconstruction. Because when I started this, it was about multiple active shooting scenarios. And those multiple active shooter scenarios were all white people doing some real fucked up shit to other souls. And I'm not the only one who knows this to be true, because they're going to give you the data and the information right there on the Reconstruction report. Check it out for yourself. But they can put it in a map, and they can put it in a document that is organized and well structured. They can present it to Congress. And so the other night they ran this story about NFAC coming to Louisville, and they ran the story as if it was black people coming to racially terrorize Louisville. And I say we get so tired of them using lynching and calling it and that's just not the case here today. When they have never brought justice for even when it was the case. But they used it to make it a narrative about this black mob when they've never prosecuted the white mobs. And so I just hope that it's clear as we break this information into its two sides, the one that stands for the preservation of our souls versus one that is without a doubt conflicted. They'll even give you a synopsis of what happened there. Which state you want? They said there in Kentucky, Equal Justice Initiative has documented racial violence in at least 37 Kentucky counties. On election day in 1870, violence broke out in Harrodsburg, Mercer County, as white men, angered by the presence of black voters supporting pro-Reconstruction candidates, clashed with black crowds. 1 white man and 4 black people were killed, and 15 to 20 black people were wounded. And that is a rebuttal to the people who say, well, we just need to vote. We need to do the local voting thing. And so we could go on for another hour and a half because there's more states. There's more information. I like this section, the economic intimidation. This one was huge. See, they tried to make this about us as if they could just run from the fact that that orphanage where those black bodies was, yeah, that's white people shit. This image is the one that they're trying to portray in order to make their story. Well, black people are coming to burn it down. This image. This is what they want us to, they want to put this on us while not, and if you look at the bottom of this image, they want to paint this as black folks and say, this is what we're fighting against and what we're protecting ourselves from. This is the image that they are cascading, when the truth is they did absolutely nothing about none of the people who are the real characters of the people who are doing this actual work. Train, fight, survive, says Gentile Killer. I understand now. Thank you. Great Black Shark, you stay on their heads, my guy. Stay on their heads. And so this is what it's still about here today, enforcing the racial social order. They may not think that there is still a white community or a black community. We're post-racial in our society. They may want to put that argument out there, but we are not. Hopefully I've said more to say less. I've only really made 2 or 3 points here, but I wanted those points to be as strong as possible. I wanted that message to be as clear as possible. And I wanted that message to be as real as we can stand. That one. And so I tell you that 96 bodies kidnapped from our protest of the very organized and the very structured destruction of black bodies and our protest against that. 96 more souls captured in that great fight. If we all we got, then damn you, that's all we need. I'm B1 Brother Moses. That's all I got. And I'm out.